Hello my friends, here is the wiring diagram for the bass boat, and this is how I have it wired up. I have all the switches fused. Okay, looking at this wiring circuit, first of all we have the running lights, which include the anchor light. We have a radio hooked up. We have deck lighting. We have live well lights, so when you open up the live well you can see into the water where the bait will be, and there's two live wells. I hooked up a horn onto this. You have a pump that circulates the water that you're sitting in into the live well. So there's a switch for the bait pump. Then there is a switch for the bilge pump. With the bilge pump, that includes a float switch. So the bilge pump, even though you turn the switch on, it won't energize unless there's water in the bilge, and that will turn the bilge pump on. Then I put a fish finder on the boat. I also included a trolling motor, but that has its own battery and it'll have its own circuit. So that's not included on this wiring diagram. Okay, from the battery, I put a main cutoff switch on the negative side of the battery. Here is the knife switch. That's on the negative terminal, and that will cut all power. And I'll explain why I did that. On the positive side, there is a main breaker switch that will turn everything off except for the starter motor. This is the main power switch. This turns the power on to the fuse and switch panel. Power on. And the reason for that is the starter connects directly to the battery. That's how the hookup on the cables were. So the starter is powered up all the time, and that is why I put a negative knife switch. This is a heavy switch that will shut off everything in the system. This breaker shuts everything off except for the motor, and the starter motor has its own switch. It has an on position and a momentary start position. This is the transducer for the fish finder, and it has to be mounted in a location where there's minimum turbulence, and so this is the area that's recommended. You can also mount the transducer in the hull where you would epoxy it to the bottom, but because this hull is fiberglass with wood underneath, the wood interferes with the, or plywood, the plywood interferes with the sounding of the transducer. So my option was to put it exterior like this. Also, if I want to change or remove the transducer, it's not epoxied as part of the boat. This could be unbolted. Okay, now the cable I drilled up here above the water line, and then that runs up to the cockpit console. This, of course, I need to put some silicone around that. The connections for the fish finder, this is the power cord, and this one is the transducer. Okay, this will plug into the back of the fish finder screen. Okay, the bracket is mounted onto the console. The cables for the transducer coming through the bottom of the console. Okay, I have a harness that I rewired, and some cables cannot be cut short like the transducer, so I coiled them and neatly tucked them out of the way. The console is used to mount a speaker. I have a horn mounted and a courtesy light, also a radio with a watertight hatch. The radio also has a remote control. Here we're looking at the inside of the console. You can see the radio, wiring harness coming out, the horn, and also one of the speakers. Okay, the wiring for the boat, I pretty much had to redo all the wiring. Some of the wires I kept because of where it was run. They were real hard to access. The hull is very thin between the deck and the hull. So I left a lot of the old wiring in there. The wiring was fine. I just needed to run new cables, a new harness. Bundled the old ones with the new. Okay, you can see here I have a fuse panel. Fuse panel is switched to these lower switches. There is a main on-off breaker, and these switches are lighted. Here's the running lights. Red, green, and the anchor light. And anchor light switch. Here is nighttime view of the bass boat. Let's get a closer look. There's the power panel, decking lights, running lights. There we have it. Bait lights. Both of them are working. Hope this video was informative. Thanks for watching, my friends. Bye-bye.